board stuff. Okay, so first off, you guys, hey, so this unit is over this week. So you guys have a test. You guys have a test. It's a take-home test, and I need you to take the test by midnight on Thursday. Okay. The test prompts are on the front of my homepage. You can click on those. Because it's the only Ireland test you're going to be taking, you have 3 prompts you got to write instead of 2, right? So I will post 4 and you're going to choose 3. Okay. Here's the problem for you. We are behind because your class goes smaller, shorter. So I'm going to have to post a video and you guys are going to have to be responsible to watch it. Okay. So I'm going to post everything for the rest of the chapter probably tonight. Either tonight or tomorrow, I'm going to post everything so you guys can watch it on Thursday. Okay. Here's the other issue. I am not going to be able to talk to you live on Thursday because I have to get all those clothes that I've been doing. I have to leave right away and I have to go transport them. And I have about 15,000 pounds worth of clothes that I need to transport away. All right. So we'll get as far as we can get today, and then everything else I'll put on a video and post for you. Okay. It's not ideal, but sorry, that's the way it is, right? That's the way it is, and that's how it goes. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you understand. You don't have to like it, you just have to understand it. All right. Okay. All right. So this is the last thing we saw. Is this Mike? Is this correct? Yeah. Yes. Okay. All right. We have 2 quizzes also. You're going to have to take the quizzes tomorrow or Thursday. Yeah. I'm going to leave the quizzes without, none of them are going to have access codes on them, but you're going to have to take them all. Okay. All right. So
wait, by you mean none of the quizzes are going to have access codes? Do you just mean 3 and 4? Or all the
3 and 4?
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. 3 and 4. You guys are the only ones who haven't done 3. So I'm just going to take the access code off of it and let you take it. Right. And then 4, everyone's doing 4 on Wednesday, Thursday. And so we'll have you take it then too. I'll just take the codes off of them. Okay. So, all right, aftermath of Easter Rising. Okay, so Easter Rising results in the election of 1918. Okay, and the election of 1918, Ireland has declared its independence. It declares its independence and it creates what we call the Dáil Éireann. The Dáil Éireann. The Dáil Éireann is the Irish Parliament. It's their Congress. Did we do this before or not? Is this new to you guys?
We talked about Markievicz, who was elected.
Markievicz. Okay, so we did make a mention of Markievicz being elected. She was in jail, but she's the first woman to be elected. She does get released from jail. All right, so as soon as they declare their independence, England, of course, is going to flip out, right? England doesn't want them to have independence. And on the same day that the Dáil Éireann is declaring independence, we're going to get something called the Sola Hedbig ambush. This is where Irish Republican Army people ambush the British leadership and kill some of the British leadership, assassinate some of the British leaders. Now, the Dáil Éireann didn't plan this, but it happens on the same day. And so this is the traditional beginning of the Irish War of Independence. At this point in time, the volunteers have become the IRA, the Republican Army, the Irish Republican Army. And the Irish Republican Army, we're going to stick with them for quite a while, actually. We're gonna have these guys for quite a while. All right, so the war breaks out across Ireland. And on the Catholic side, on the Catholic Irish side, we have the IRA. And the IRA are basically all the volunteers from Easter Rising, plus new recruits, and they're kind of formalizing themselves into an army, right? They're this new revolutionary army. On the British side, we have the Royal Irish Constabulary. That's these guys here, the RIC. And they get referred to as RIC most of the time. In most readings and stuff like that, they're called the RIC. the Royal Irish Constabulary. And the Royal Irish Constabulary are the cops. Okay, I don't want you to be tricked by the name. They're not Irish, they're British. Okay, they're just Brits serving in Ireland. That's why they're called the Irish Constabulary. Okay, so don't get tricked by the name. Write it down so you don't get tricked by it. Okay. Now this would be pretty normal, except for a big problem. The British also hire a group called Black and Tans. The Black and Tans, we call them that because that's the color of the clothes they were wearing. The Black and Tans are basically mercenaries. Okay, they're mercenaries. They're World War I veterans who are mercenaries. And the Black and Tans are known for being incredibly, incredibly brutal. They don't have the discipline of soldiers. They don't have the discipline of a chain of command. They basically just do whatever they want. And they are known for beating people, arresting people, murdering people, raping people, burning things down. They are known for a lot of atrocities of this war. Now, I don't want you to be tricked by the scale of this war, right? Everything in Ireland has a smaller scale, right? And the end of the war, by the end of this war, we're really only going to lose like 3,000 people, right? So it's a pretty small war. But if you're doing like a per capita, like war crimes per capita, this is an incredibly brutal and nasty war. Okay, so it's not producing a lot of deaths by numbers. It's just, it is producing a lot of crime, a lot of brutality. Okay. All right. So the war continues. We have Michael Collins. Now, we introduced Michael Collins back here. He was elected to office. There he is right there, right? But Michael Collins is really particularly important for this war. Okay, and he's going to be important for something called Bloody Sunday. Michael Collins is the first finance minister of Ireland, of the independent Ireland. And that's probably his most important role. Now, he's a really, really good speaker. He's a really charismatic guy, right? He's a really, like, he gets the crowds riled up, right? He's a really, really good speaker. And, but his job as finance minister is super, super important because as finance minister, it's his job to pay for to figure out a way to pay for independence. And so what he does is he gets wealthy Irish businesses, wealthy Irish people, and also American businesses, and eventually the American government, all to send money over. Declaring independence is expensive. It's expensive, right? And so he secures loans and investments from American businesses, the American government, and Irish businesses. And that's easily his most important contribution, right? If you don't pay the bills, you don't become independent, right? You got to pay your bills, right? But he's also really important because he's also a spy for the IRA. Now, as an elected official, he's able to kind of interact with people that a normal person wouldn't be able to do that. He's able to go places that a normal person wouldn't go, right? He's able to do those things, and he also spies. This brings us to Bloody Sunday, 1921. You have to put the date on here because Ireland has two very famous Bloody Sundays. Okay, so you need the date, Bloody Sunday, 1921. And on Bloody Sunday, 1921, Michael Collins leads a group called the Cairo Gang. And the Cairo Gang is like one of these secret society groups, right? He leads a gang where he goes to a bunch of British officials' houses and murders them in their sleep. He assassinates 15 British officials in their sleep. And this is where his gang all like break into the houses all at like the same time, roughly, at all these different houses. And these are like British officials and also like Irish officials who are sympathetic, right? Like collaborators. And they murder all these people in their sleep. We call it Bloody Sunday, not because of murdering people in their sleep, but we call it Bloody Sunday because that afternoon in Dublin at Croke Park, there's a soccer match happening. And the British, the RIC, the Royal Irish Constabulary, they want to squash any group meetings, right? And so they order all the groups to be split up, right? And they're really upset about all these murders the night before, and the crowd, of course, doesn't want to leave. And so what ends up happening is the cops basically just start killing the crowd. They open fire on the crowd and they kill 15 people and injure another 6. This is, of course, going to be a polarizing event where the Irish are going to latch onto this event and they're going to, push forward. Okay. All right. This is where the British are really, really going to, what am I talking about? The British are really going to cause some problems. They're going to escalate this war quite a bit. In 1920, they're going to pass something called the Government of Ireland Act. And the Government of Ireland Act creates 2 parliaments in Ireland, 2 parliaments, one in Dublin and one in Belfast. And the British basically say that the Irish are going to have some limited autonomy and stuff like that, right? Ireland does not recognize that Dublin Parliament. That Dublin Parliament never exists, right? The Irish say, no, screw you. We already have our Dáil Éireann. We already have our Parliament. They're the Dáil Éireann, they're the ones we elected. That's our guys. The one in Belfast does go into effect. The Government of Ireland Act is the act that splits Ireland. This is where we're going to get Ulster separating from the rest of Ireland, and we're going to get them created as a separate unit. Okay? The big problem here is violence explodes across Ireland. Up until this point, the violence had mostly been in like Dublin and in Munster, down in the south. But now the worst, nastiest violence on the island is going to break out in the north. Okay. We've been up until this point talking about the north as being like 100% Protestant and 100% loyal to England. That is not true. Okay. And it was never been true. Okay. In the north, we have about 35% Catholic and 35% not loyal to England. Right? They want to be part of Ireland. They do not want to be part of the UK. And so in the north, they're going to form something called the Ulster Special Constabulary, the USC. And the USC is going to be a police force comprised of Protestant North Irish people, and they are going to be responsible for just terrible, nightmarish war crimes. Lots and lots of war crimes. Ireland will never recognize, they don't recognize the legitimacy of the North Irish government all the way until 1998. Okay, so this is going to be a point of conflict moving forward. Okay, you guys, do you have questions about the war so far? You guys doing okay? Going once, going twice? Okay. All right, the war ends with the Anglo-Irish Treaty. Okay, I think it's best to say the disappointing Anglo-Irish Treaty, right? The Anglo-Irish Treaty is basically going to leave nobody happy. Everyone's going to be pretty upset about this treaty. So this treaty is signed in December of 1921. Okay, so North Ireland has already started to split. In the Anglo-Irish Treaty, it recognizes that Ireland is going to become the Irish Free State. That's what we're going to name it now. It's called the Irish Free State. And it gets self-autonomy within the British Empire. Okay, so it's going to get something like 80% autonomy. it basically gets the same status as Canada or Australia or New Zealand or South Africa. Okay, so it has the same kind of status where it has total control over all of its own domestic affairs, but it's still connected to England for some of its foreign stuff. They signed this. North Ireland is officially now gone. It's not part of Ireland anymore. North Ireland remains part of the UK at this point. Now, this treaty was negotiated by Michael Collins and Arthur Griffith. Michael Collins and Arthur Griffith. Arthur Griffith, right here, he's the leader of the Irish Free State at this point, and Michael Collins is the finance minister. Okay, these are the two kind of heroes, and they both went to London and signed the treaty. Now, I'm saying this is disappointing because we're immediately going to get a division. A lot of the Irish people do not trust this treaty at all. Okay, the leaders of the anti-treaty side are Eamon de Valera. He's the leader of that group. Eamon de Valera, right? We met him before, right? Where is he? Here's Eamon de Valera down here, right? Here he is after his arrest, right? So de Valera is particularly upset about this treaty. And de Valera says the British have lied to us in the past. They've gone back on their treaties in the past. We can't trust the British. We need to have full, absolute, total independence, or we keep fighting. That's what Dev says. And I don't know if I told you this, but De Valera, his nickname is Dev. Dev Valera, Dev, right? And most Irish people, when they talk about him, they only say Dev. They just call him Dev. You are welcome to call him Dev on your tests, but you need to say his full name first, and then after that, you can call him Dev, right? It's like saying Franklin Roosevelt and then calling him FDR. Same kind of a deal. Cool? That makes sense? Okay. But you can treat Dev like an acronym if you want, right? DEV, Dev. All right, so Dev is opposed to the treaty. Collins and Griffith are in favor of the treaty. Okay, Collins in particular is going to give us this nice quote here. Yash, go ahead and read it in your best Irish accent, please.
I don't know what an Irish accent sounds like, but not the ultimate freedom that all nations aspire and develop, but the freedom to achieve freedom.
That's good. It did not sound very Irish, but it was still good. All right, so the freedom to achieve freedom. That's the quote that is the most important quote. That's literally the quote that's on his tombstone, right? Is that he's going to get the freedom to achieve freedom. Collins makes an argument that that Ireland can use this as leverage to gain more independence over time. That the valuable thing is to stop the war, stop the destruction, stop the fighting, and then they can work on the independence as they go. The same way that Canada has expanded its independence and Australia has and South Africa has, right? Collins says it's not perfect, but this is the freedom to achieve freedom. That's what he calls it. And that's an important distinction, right? In a way, it's kind of weird to say this, but in a way, Collins is the incrementalist, right? It's kind of weird to call a dude an incrementalist when he just murdered 15 people in their sleep, you know? That doesn't seem like the most incremental thing to do, but you know, here he is. He's an incrementalist. All right. De Valera is upset, and he remains upset all through 1922. The peace lasts for about 6 months, and then De Valera and his men, they take over something called the Four Courts. De Valera takes over the Four Courts. Four Courts is the Parliament building. That's the name of the building. Four Courts. So they take over the Four Courts and they're occupying it. Now, Collins is willing to just kind of let them be there, calm themselves down, right? Like let them scream themselves till they go to sleep and then take them out, right? Collins says, we're just going to wait. We're going to starve them out. That's what we're going to do. But the British look at this as like a threat to Ireland. And they say Ireland is so precarious and Ireland is going to be so dangerous that the British push and they say, Collins, you need to take care of this right now, or we are going to take care of it. Okay. And so Collins then gets some of the World War I artillery cannons and opens fire on De Valera and his forces. This is the beginning, and this is June of 22. June of 1922. This is the beginning of the Irish Civil War. So the Irish War of Independence kind of just leads right into the Irish Civil War, right? They don't really kind of stop. The big difference here is that in the Irish War of Independence, they're Irish fighting British. And then they paused for 6 months, and now it's Irish fighting Irish. Okay, but they don't really get a rest. It's basically nonstop war almost. Okay, the Irish Civil War is between pro-treaty forces and anti-treaty forces. Pro-treaty, anti-treaty. Okay, it's not like one state versus another. It's not that. It's an ideological war. So the Irish Civil War is going to last for about a year. It lasts for a little more than a year, and the Irish Civil War is going to be another nasty, terrible war, and it's going to produce a lot of like murdering and raping and killing and burning and again a lot of war crimes, a really disproportionate number of war crimes for the size of the war. Okay. Oh, and the fighting. Oh, that's the other thing. The fighting never stopped in the North. So the Irish War of Independence just bled right into the Irish Civil War, and they would never stop fighting in the North because all those states of Ulster are trying to get their independence. If you look on the map back here, right? If you look on the map, this entire section is Ulster, right? Ulster is this entire northern section, but all of these green sections are going to secede from North Ireland, right? So they all secede, but none of them do it peacefully. They all fight to secede over and over again. So the fighting never ended in the North. There was not a 6-month break in the North. It just kind of just kept going, right? Which is one of the reasons why the British were so insistent that the Irish stop it, right? That the British wanted the fighting to stop. All right, anyway, we now have an Irish Free State. Hooray! It's the Irish Civil War is over and the Irish Free State wins. The Irish Free State wins, kind of. We got some troubles here, okay? Irish Free State is what we today would call Republic of Ireland, okay? So the Irish Free State is being led by this man right here, W.T. Cosgrave. W.T. Cosgrave. His political party is Cumann na Gael. Cumann na Gael is his political party. Cumann na Gael. Okay. The opposition is Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin, who's being led by Dev. Sinn Féin led by Dev. All right. Here's the trick. Cosgrave, W.T. Cosgrave, he takes over the government in 1922. He's the first president of the Irish Free State, and he is unopposed completely until 1926. Sinn Féin refuses to take their seat. They refuse to take their seat in the parliament because in order for them to be sworn in as members of the Dol Éireann, they have to swear allegiance to the British crown. It's part of the rules of being the Free State. They're still part of the Commonwealth. They're still part of the empire, right? So they still have to recognize the British king as their king. Okay? They refuse to do that. De Valera refuses to do that, and so he refuses to take his seat, and so Sinn Féin literally just doesn't take their seat. The Dol Éireann has like 72 seats, and of the 72 seats, they just exist with like 35 empty seats that nobody's sitting in the seats. The seats are just empty. where the people had voted for Sinn Féin, but the Sinn Féin refuses to take the seat. Okay. So let's better know a Cosgrave. All right. So Cosgrave is the president of the Irish Free State. And as president of the Irish Free State, he's pretty conservative. He's a pretty conservative dude. Okay. He's an anti-leftist. He's against communism. He's against socialism. He's against the left. And he's very, very pro-business. He's going to spend his decade, because he's going to be in power for a full decade, 1922 to 1932. He's going to be in power for a full decade. He's going to spend that entire decade basically trying to make Ireland as pro-business as he can make. Okay. It's the 1920s. And so what's the most fashionable business idea out there? What are all good leaders in the 1920s doing with their business? How much control do governments have over a business in the 1920s? Ilha, what do you think, man?
Not sure. Would it be like a lot of control? Not sure.
Oh, a lot of control. That's the Soviet Union.
Oh,
What is England and America and Canada and South Africa and Australia? What are they all doing? What's the term?
laissez-faire?
Laissez-faire. Okay. So Cosgrave is at laissez-faire economics. He believes in laissez-faire economics, and he's trying to create a pro-business government, which is laissez-faire. Okay. All right. So he's known for these things here. Okay. The first thing, let's go down this list. The first thing that Cosgrave is known for, and probably the thing he's most famous for, is the Garda Síochána. The Garda Síochána. So the Garda Síochána is the police force. It's the Gaelic word for police force. So the Garda Síochána is the Irish police force. This is Irish policing themselves. And it's most famous for the fact that they don't carry weapons. They are cops who don't carry guns. In fact, in their charter, they are prohibited from carrying guns, prohibited from carrying guns until they already have confirmation that they are going to go up against guns. The criminals have to pull guns and use guns first before the cops can even carry a gun. Okay, this actually is true all the way till today. The Garda Síochána today is still an unarmed police force. Okay, police officers will carry a gun in their car, usually, right, today. They'll have a gun like locked up in the trunk of their car. But when they answer like a 911 call, or the Irish equivalent of a 911 call, when they answer the call and they go to a house or something, they do not have the gun on them. In fact, if they carry the gun on them, they get fired. If somebody brandishes a gun, they have to go out to their car and get their gun and come back. Okay. The number one complaint about the British at this time period, and this is where you need this, the number one complaint about the British was police violence, right? That the British were violent and the British were too quick to attack people. They're too quick to open fire. They're too quick to club people. They're too quick to kill people. And so the number one thing that the Irish wanted was a police force that was a partner with the community. The Garda Síochána is required to find non-invasive, peaceful methods of diffusing situations. It's built right into the charter of the government, the charter of the police force. They are required to find non-violent solutions. If they cannot find non-violent solutions, they are not allowed to become police officers, and they get fired for it. Okay? This is something that the Irish are going to do, and the Irish people absolutely love it, and it's something that the Irish people are going to hold on to for as long as they can. Hold on. Hello? Yeah. Hey. Okay. I'm teaching my Zoom class right now, but I can meet you right at the end of class. Can we do that? Okay. Okay, awesome. I'll stop by your room on my way. Thanks. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, so that's a big deal, right? This is a pretty cool thing. All right, the next thing he's most known for is called the Shannon Hydroelectric Scheme. The Shannon Hydroelectric Scheme is a giant dam. It's a giant dam near Limerick. In fact, these are the pictures of the dam being constructed. The dam is the Shannon Hydroelectric Scheme. The Ardna Crucia is the name of the power plant inside of the Shannon Hydroelectric Scheme. Shannon's the name of the river. Okay. This is kind of a little bit shocking for a big, for like a little government, laissez-faire kind of guy, right? Is that he's the second thing he's most famous for is a big giant public works project, right? But this is a big deal because prior to this, Ireland didn't have electricity in Connacht or Munster, right? They only had electricity in like Cork and Dublin and a couple of places, right? And so this is going to bring electricity to large sections of the island, and it's going to allow, you know, Ireland to grow. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal, but it's also a big deal for the establishment of democracy because A, you're bringing services to the people, but B, in order to create a big thing like this, you have to create all sorts of like government bureaucracy, right? You need like a Department of the Interior. You need a Department of Water. You need a Department of Construction, right? You need to have like a payroll and an HR, and you need to have a planning department, and you need to have all these departments. None of them existed. And so Cosgrave had to basically create the government necessary in order to do this. So that's why it's important for you guys on a like development of democracy standpoint, is because this is creating the bureaucracy of a government. It's just kind of interesting that because Ireland is so small, the entire bureaucracy is being created because of one dam, right? India, on the other hand, is at any point in time, when India goes through its big dam building phase, India is building like 300 dams at one time, because India is, you know, so big, right? So we're dealing with a different kind of a scale here. Okay. All right. Ultimately, what's going to happen to Cosgrave is that he's going to be brought down by politics. Okay. He's going to spend a decade bringing together everyone into the fold. So he brings the Unionists into the fold. He brings the Redmondites into the fold. These are both conservatives, right? These are the people who were supporting the old IPP in Redmond, and these are the people who were supporting the UK. And he brings them in and he says, hey, we're all Ireland now. You need to become Ireland with us, right? And so he brings them in. He also brings in Sinn Féin. He changes the requirements. They actually get an amendment to the government where you are not required to swear allegiance to the crown. And by doing that, Eamon de Valera takes his seat. Okay. Sinn Féin refuses to sit de Valera. They refuse to take their seat. And so de Valera forms his own party called the Fianna Fáil. Fianna Fáil. And when he does that, he's going to take a big chunk of Sinn Féin away, right? So Fianna Fáil is one of our two parties that's going to exist all the way till today. It's one of the two largest parties of Ireland today, okay? Fianna Fáil. They used to be Sinn Féin, now they're Fianna Fáil. Cool? So we have a two-party system, Cumann na Gael and Fianna Fáil. Those are our two parties. All right. Eventually, what happens to Cosgrave is the same thing that happens to any single party system, right? What happens to your political party if your political party controls everything and is unopposed? What happens to your political party eventually, Mike?
Factions within it.
Okay, you're going to get factions within it, right? And why are you developing factions?
There's too many to agree on one thing.
Yeah, you're too big, right? Eventually what happens is your party doesn't stand for anything, right? Your party doesn't have an ideology because everyone's a part of your party. And so you're going to get these factions within it, right? You're going to get that, but you just don't believe in anything, right? When your party is that big and unopposed, your party basically becomes the party of keeping us in power. right? That happened to the national party, the Indian National Congress, right? Is that they just eventually just stood for nothing. They just stood for being in power, right? That's why we could have like Indira Gandhi be so radically different in the party, right? The INC, Indian National Congress. All right. Anyway, Eamon de Valera wins election in 1932. This is still part of the Irish Free State. Eamon de Valera wins election in 1932. And he is going to undergo, he's the Fianna Fáil party, and he's going to undergo the process of removing Ireland from England, right? He wants to move from 80% independent to 100% independent. So he's going to push a bunch of like really, really pro-nationalist kind of things. The first thing he's going to push is the Gaelic language. He wants to make that the official language of Ireland. He's going to get a lot of pushback by people because a lot of people are like, we like Gaelic, but we don't speak it, right? The problem is only like 20% of the country speak Gaelic. So, that's a problem. It's a barrier to making it your national language, right? He tries to unify North Ireland and Ireland, but it doesn't work. It doesn't go anywhere. And we're going to talk about North Ireland in a moment. He's going to hire this man here, Sean Lemass, as his economic minister, and they are going to be faced with the Great Depression. All through the 1930s, they have the Great Depression, and the Great Depression hits everything, right? And so just like everywhere else in the world, Ireland is going to be, economically tied down. Lemass is going to be basically kind of an FDR type figure, where he's going to be advocating like large government programs, large government like public works, building bridges and roads and things like that, bridges, roads, dams, that kind of stuff, right? Very similar to FDR's New Deal is what he's going to try to do. What really, really stands out through the 1930s? The 1930s is a dangerous time for democracy, right? It's a very dangerous time for democracy. The Soviet Union is firmly entrenched in communism, right? Hitler is elected in Germany. Franco in Spain is taking over in Spain. Mussolini's in charge of Italy, right? Like, it is not clear that democracy is going to survive, okay, in the 1930s. I know in 2021, looking back at it, we know how things are going to turn out, but in 1930s, it is not clear. It is not clear at all, okay? What's interesting is that Ireland is going to regularly commit to democracy in a way that a lot of places won't. The best example of that is this guy right here, Ewan O'Duffy. Ewan O'Duffy is a fascist. He's a member of Cumann na Gael, and he is a fascist. Okay, he fought in Easter Rising, he fought in the Irish War of Independence, he fought in the Irish Civil War, and now he is a fascist. And here are his people doing like the Hitler salute and stuff, right? He is a Hitler-style fascist, and he wants to overthrow the government. His supporters are called blue shirts. Hitler had brown shirts, Mussolini had black shirts, O'Duffy has blue shirts, right? They're starting to run out of colors, right? Eventually you're going to get like the periwinkle shirts, right? That's like the fascist movement of like Denmark or something, right? Like the pink shirts. Okay. Anyway, so he's the leader of the blue shirts. Now, this could be a really, really dangerous thing, right? If you have a two-party system and then the Conservative Party gets like a really charismatic dude who doesn't really care about democracy, and he wants to undermine democracy, and he wants to like arrest people and throw kids in cages and like do all sorts of weird stuff, right? And he doesn't give a shit about democracy, and he's gonna like advocates for his people to like, storm the Capitol and like fight. Like, you can imagine a world where that would happen, and then the Conservative Party just kind of like agrees to let it happen, right? Like, you can imagine that be a real problem, and then if that one party gets power, then they could just kill the other party. That's not what happens in Ireland, though. In Ireland, when Eoin O'Duffy starts getting support, Cumann na Gael kicks him out of the party. They say, no, dude, you're out. We don't want your crap. Get your fascist crap out of here. We don't want you. And they kick him out of the party, and they kick all of his supporters out of the party. And they do it in a way that they are so convinced that they are so adamant about kicking him out that they actually rebrand the entire party Fine Gael. They rename the party Fine Gael. Okay, they kick him out and they rename the party Fine Gael, and here's the thing. This is the part that is the most shocking. It's not the shocking thing that the party wants to keep itself, right? That's not terribly shocking. What's shocking is that when they kick him out and they rebrand themselves, Fianna Fáil doesn't capitalize on it. Fianna Fáil doesn't punish them. Fianna Fáil applauds them for kicking him out, right? And Fianna Fáil says, you guys deserve to have these seats. You guys get your seats, right? We'll compete over the seats in the middle. This would have to be something like if the Republican Party were to kick Trump out and then rebrand itself, and then the Democrats just sat back and let it happen and didn't go after that, right? Can you even see that happening in the United States? Is there any way that would happen, right? Not a chance, right? That's why it's a really interesting. Can you put my door open for me? That's why it's a really interesting example of this happening in history. Okay, the Irish Free State comes to a close in 1937. In 1937, when Eamon de Valera gets the thing that he finally wants the most, a constitution and the Republic of Ireland. Okay, 1937, we get a constitution and the Republic of Ireland, and this is where I have students in my room, so we're gonna have to pick up there next time. Okay. Cool.
I had a quick question. So
Yeah, Yash.
for Thursday, you want us to like turn in the notes, do 2 quizzes and the test as well as that?
Yeah, so you can do quiz number 3 today.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you now have everything you need to do quiz number 3. So do quiz number 3 today. Do that one. Do that one today. But you're gonna have to do, yeah, all the other stuff on Thursday. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna post the videos today. I'm gonna record them today at my house, and I'll post them tonight, so you guys can look at them and see. Okay.
Do you think it would be possible to take the tests on Friday, or is that too late?
Why would you need Friday? Let me turn off the recording real quick. Okay. Well, anyway, I think Wental's the only one who needs the recording. So take quiz number 3 today. Do that one today. So what are you asking about, Yash?